Greetings, everybody. I am Tanaya-Lyn, a senior social work major with a minor in home front readjustment for the armed forces. And for this week's discussion, in general, we had to put the social work roles in order, I guess, on how they best fit us. So to start, I started with advocate. I found myself advocating for others at a point where at first I didn't even know that it was advocating. I thought it was just, I knew it, okay. So I didn't know that the word was called advocacy. I just knew I was taking up for someone who couldn't take up for themselves, or, trying to help them navigate or articulate how they feel or what they were trying to say to someone who they weren't able to. So the definition was an active intervention on a client's system's behalf to get needed resources. I did just hold a position as a case manager, so that was pretty much what I did. Communicated and advocated for my clients with resources in the community. If they didn't know what to say or how to even reach those resources, that's where I would step in and kind of help them do so, which goes into my next role I feel like that I do really well, which is being an enabler. And it's the good enabler, y'all. I would say I use enabling to push the person. I know that, we all know that there's two different ways that you can advocate and, be an enabler. And I was a good enabler and a bad enabler. But enabler throughout the role says that it provides support and encouragement. And so that's what I do. I use the person's strength to push them to continue to take on life's challenges and just go through life, and be a great civilian. I know enabler on the negative side could be kind of like just doing it for them so that they don't have to do it themselves. And I never thought that that was a good idea. I always thought, just pushing them, encouraging them, empowering their strengths, pointing out what I see that are positives that can help them grow. And so I feel like I was more of a motivating enabler. The second one goes into educator, facilitator. In the roles that we received, I put those two together. Of course, because I'm a parent, I feel like I do try to educate people on things that they don't know, enhance their knowledge and educate them on furthering, a topic. And I think that also too falls into facilitator, because as a case manager, I would hold those group sessions where we would all come together and kind of talk about our challenges, our strengths, and the room for improvement that we all have. The next role I feel was kind of good for me was an evaluator and an analyst. And the reason why I say that is because no matter where I go, what I'm doing, what kind of crowd I'm in, I'm always observing. I'm always, kind of just looking at what's going on. And I feel like thinking of ways that could better a person's situation. So if it's for the client, kind of evaluating their community, all of their systems, and seeing how we could use those to improve their well-being. Or how we could just use those to, improve their surrounding issues, I guess I would say. My next one was a broker. And a broker links systems together from the resources. So I feel like, again, that falls back on my case management, where I was connecting my clients to resources in the community that they didn't know was available to them. Our clients kind of weren't, they could do for themselves. However, sometimes there were times where they couldn't, or they didn't know where to start. So I was the bridge to that gap and, got them to the resources that they needed. So I thought that was super dope. As a mobilizer, the definition states that a mobilizer identifies and convenes community people and resources and make them responsive to unmet community needs. So with working with the homeless population, I felt like that's exactly what I did. I identified what it was that they need, the community that they were in. I researched the resources that were available to assist them, and we kind of just brought that together so that their needs could be met, whether that was the community in a whole or if that was a single client. The next one I would use is an initiator. So I am the person who, because I am a sergeant at arms outside of being a case manager, sometimes I have to bring up those tough issues and those tough discussions that nobody really wants to speak on. Or maybe, there's an elephant in a room and no one really wants to start that conversation. So I'll say I do really well with that, depending on the topic. And it's crazy that I could do it for other people, but sometimes I do see some of these roles challenging when it comes to myself. So I think all of these roles that I've spoken on so far is just pretty much when I have to deal with other people and take on others, needs that have to be met. But when it comes to Tanaya, it kind of does get a little challenging. But the next role is negotiator. Now, I put the negotiator part on more so the back end of the roles for me because I have had to be a negotiator in quite a few instances, right? And the definition says that it's an intermediary. Sorry, y'all. Who can act to settle disputes or resolve disagreements. Negotiators clearly take the side of one of the parties involved. In many situations, both sides in dispute may have their own negotiators. Now, I'm one who gives people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm one who's open to seeing both sides. So that's why I was more so on the back end for me, because sometimes when trying to resolve an issue, both sides make sense to me. And so it's hard for me to choose which side I'm going to go on. Also, too, I realized that with being a negotiator, I don't like to hurt others' feelings, or I don't want my personal opinion to make someone else feel some type of way because I don't agree with them. A lot of people can't take it when people don't agree with what they're saying. So I take people's feelings into consideration a little too much with being a negotiator, so that's kind of why I put that on the back end. A manager, I put that on the back end too, because as the slide stated, a manager is someone who assumes administrative responsibilities for like a social service or an organizational system. Because I like to have my hands in different pots and move around, I feel like depending on the situation, I can manage a specific area, but I find it a little challenging sometimes when I'm here, there, everywhere, and I'm not in a consistent space. So I think the manager role, it can be done, especially with the administrative side, because I've held administrative assistant positions, and I hold secretarial positions even on campus. So I know that I can do it. It's just I have to be in like specific areas to do so. And then the last one is a mediator. Again, I think that falls back with the manager position, the negotiator position, where it's just like sometimes I just understand both sides, and especially when the side explains further why they chose whatever they chose, I could see, it being valid. And I don't know if that's like, a social worker thing, or if it's just kind of trying to understand both sides and validate everyone's feelings. So I don't think in different topics I could be a great mediator, because I understand both parties. And that has had its challenges with me as well. So those are my orders for the social work roles, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.